Hello everyone and welcome to today's More Report Chart Analysis videos on Thursday the 1st of February with me, Richard Perry, Market Analyst at Hantec Markets. We've had the Fed meeting last night and the dollar has found a degree of support, although not decisively higher. It's interesting that the euro is still sort of buzzing around really, but it sort of started to, the dollar started to find a bit of traction against the yen, interestingly enough. And also starting to drag gold a little bit lower. But you can see here on the dollar index, which is basically unmoved, but it's interesting that we are starting to see a few signs potentially of a bit of a recovery, and the Treasury yields have pulling higher. The Fed is concerned about inflation. It seems to be that inflation is going to be the driver of the Fed accelerating monetary policy tightening, if that is the case this year. It said the Fed in its statement that inflation on a 12-month basis was expected to move up this year, basically, and hit Fed's target of 2% in the medium term. Fed funds futures are sort of moving on that, and they're sort of now pricing in likelihood of 3 rate hikes, and which is in line with the Fed dot plots. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Fed continues to focus on inflation, then that those Fed funds might sort of push out to maybe 4 rate hikes this year. But at the moment, we're seeing the dollar just sort of consolidating a bit rather than being able to gain any traction. Sterling stronger, euro stronger today, but the yen is weaker. Yeah, some interesting moves on these markets. With that, we are also seeing the equity markets finding a degree of support today, although it's interesting, I've got my chart today, which is the DAX. It's just tailing off a little bit as that rally has sort of started to sort of wilt a little bit early today. But S&P 500 and Dow finding a bit of support overnight, and Asian markets also higher. So can the buying impact continue through the session? In previous days, the European markets have sort of lost the buyers throughout the session, and then it subsequently closed pretty negatively. Now, the PMIs are the big focus today. We've had the Eurozone PMIs just out, and actually just in the last couple of minutes we've actually had the UK PMI miss expectations there, 55.3, so will that start to wane on the sterling rally? Eurozone PMIs in line with expectations of 59.6, and then this afternoon we're looking out for the US ISM manufacturing data, which is expected to just dip slightly to 58.8, but that's this afternoon. So my chart today is the DAX, and the DAX opened strongly today to break that previous that sort of downtrend that we've been in. But look at that, if the market sort of closes back under, you've got this gap, this breakdown gap at 13,275 on the DAX. Filled the gap on the last 2 days and failed, and again it's sort of back under that level. So it's once more the intraday rallies are being sold into. RSI around 50. Is it another failure? Would another failure then start to sort of put pressure back on that 13,137 level? That is clearly a key level of those mid-January lows. And if you break down that, you're sort of back negative towards the bottom of the range again, rather than being positive in the sort of upper reaches. So this is sort of like a mid-range pivot, effectively, 13,137. So that is a key level that markets will be looking out for. Momentum indicators have slowed a touch on the downside, sort of reflective of the sort of market picking up a touch today. But look at this hourly chart where you've seen the sort of initial rally to 13,300 just roll over. RSI in the hourly back at around 50. Yeah, so you do need to get that traction to the upside to really improve the outlook, otherwise it could be another move that gets sold into. So yeah, the DAX struggling to sort of to make gains. There is a sort of little mini pivot around 13,300 as well. Will this sort of be the limit of the upside before sort of selling off again? So I wish you good luck in your trading today.